Beautiful. All right. Now, Liam, what were you saying? Sorry.
I was saying,
Good evening and welcome back to another episode of the Joust via Zoom. Now, Liam, we sort of delved into the final. Actually, it was a regular season game back in 2003 against the Broncos. Marvelous game. Packed
it was a
stadium.
tremendous game. One of the best.
And now we've decided to jump forward in time 10 whole years, which is still 7 years ago from present day. But looking at it was an amazing game to see the Knights take on the Bulldogs in the first final. Is it a semi-final? No, it's just called the final.
It's an elimination final. Yeah, it's the elimination final between 6th and 7th, where
6th and 7th.
Bulldogs and Knights had finished respectively, I believe.
Yeah. This was under the new system, I believe, Liam. This is correct. This is the McIntyre system was out the window. You hate the McIntyre system, Liam.
It's not so much, Nagy, that I hate the McIntyre system. It's just that when I try and think about the McIntyre system, when I try and read about the McIntyre system, every time I try and inform myself about the McIntyre system, it bends my brain into a pretzel. It's a system I don't think McIntyre himself understood. It was some sort of strange lottery where the third highest winner plays the second most try-scoring.
They got McIntyre, and then they got Duckworth-Lewis in the same room, and they said,
I was about to bring out the Duckworth-Lewis.
And then they said, McIntyre, you've got it. You've won it. And that's how we're going to do NRL from now on. I feel like it was just out of spite that they didn't do the AFL one. Clearly, it was a better system.
No,
and
the
that's
AFL had the McIntyre system as well.
They got rid of it, though, and introduced a new one.
Oh, yeah. But
then we were like, oh, let's not use the new one that's going really well over there. Let's use our crazy McIntyre system. Basically, just as a quick refresher from people, it was first played 8th, 7th played 6th, 5th played 4th, and 2nd played 3rd. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, but the highest rating winner the lowest high ranking winner would play the highest low ranking No.
Yeah. Yes. This is how it's just a confusing system. But basically, in this particular scenario, we were playing the Bulldogs, but this was the new system. Sorry, this was the new system. That's correct. Let's stop talking about the final systems and start talking about the game. Liam, where were you when you were watching this game?
Nagy, I've got not a clue. I think you're well aware that I have lost most of my memories from around that time period. So I would say around 2013, I was bar working. So I guess I was at work, getting paid to peddle alcohol.
I managed to get the night off also working in the hospitality industry, but I went down to the Sunnyside Hotel, which I was just Sunnyside Tavern, I believe it was called. And it was because I was living in Broadmeadow. But if I was watching it now, I'd tell you what, I'll be at the Commonwealth Hotel.
Absolutely.
Far superior pub to any.
Great place to watch any game of football. Doesn't have to be a final, just any game of football.
It's just the best pub in the entire world. I can clearly say that.
And boy, don't we miss it.
Oh, God, don't we? Sometimes I just walk past it, stand there in the rain with a trench coat. Where do you get those coats that they have?
I actually got one off ASOS many years ago. Everyone's mistake is they search for a trench coat when what you really want is a Mac coat, M-A-C. Yeah. I used to have an ASOS brand one. It was brilliant.
Velcro.
I was very well dressed.
The executive. That's Liam, this game was
a beltless trench coat.
I believe we'd beaten the Bulldogs twice already in this season, 2013. We had a bit of a win-loss season. We weren't very strong. We couldn't really get any form, but what we did do is beat the Bulldogs on 2 separate occasions already. So coming into this game, I feel like we had their number. There was an interesting time for the Dogs. I believe that Reynolds was probably their key sort of playmaker. Ben Barber was originally benched. He was starting the side when he came on. But at the same time, this was sort of like the fall of Ben Barber. He sort of peaked around 2012 when he was the best player. Basically, at the Golden Boot sort of winner, I think he was. Well, Dally M.
He won the Dally M, definitely, yeah.
He was an absolute freak. And this was sort of him falling off the wagon. Remember, actually, he used to have the gang he was in. Do you remember
The Epic Bender Crew, EBC.
Epic Bender Crew? Yes.
Yeah.
Now that
There
probably
was, who else was in that? There was I want to
Now,
say
he-
Blake Ferguson was a member.
Probably.
If not a member, he's an honorary member.
If-
He's been added to the group postpartum.
if he had his time again, he would probably want to disassociate himself from the Epic Bender Crew, considering that he's had a lot of problem with alcohol and alcohol-related incidents. I wonder
Which for
where
our
they
listeners
are now.
that don't know, can you explain what a bender is?
Bender is when the pub shuts and then you decide, I'm not going to finish drinking. And then you go somewhere else and then with other people typically, but it doesn't have to be. And then you think, I'm not going to finish drinking now. The sun comes up. That's not going to stop you. Call into work sick, everything.
And then
there is no wall you can't climb.
and
Sorry,
then
I'm
you
over a
say
bit
thank you.
personal
You say thank you for the red wine, Gavin, and you leave.
there. But this game was a strong showing from the Knights. I think we couldn't really find any form through the season, but we really peaked at the right time. This is the game before the one we beat the Storm. We had this is Danny Medeiros' last season, and you could tell he really wound back the clock as far as form for this game and the next, to knowing that this was going to be the end of the road. It would have been great if Danny played those 4 years with the Knights rather than went off to bloody Leeds Rhinos.
That would have been fantastic. But I'm glad you mentioned that. The team peaked at the right part of the year. Doesn't that just scream Wayne Bennett to you? That's just what Wayne Bennett does. He gets teams and he gets them in the right form at the right time of the year, in the right hands, and it's a very Bennett-esque performance.
Stay right back.
Stay
right back, ladies and gentlemen.
He's a friend of mine. Stay right back. But I think a lot of people forget that we made a goddamn preliminary final in 2013 under Wayne Bennett. I forget it on a weekly basis.
Yes.
It just still seems so far removed from the kind of the impression that we have of Wayne and the way that Wayne left the club. You kind of forget there was that 1 year in there where he actually got us pretty close.
1 out of 3, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was.
Yeah. So, Liam, what was? I know you've watched this game very closely. Talk us through the first point of the game.
Now we're going to go through a bit of a chronological order of the game. So the opening,
the same way time took us.
In very much the same way. Yes, time being completely linear, we cannot deviate from it or go up against it. But opening 7 or 8 minutes or so was just the Bulldogs and the Knights feeling each other out, seeing which forward pack will get the ascendancy. But the first thing I've chosen to highlight is the poor treatment of James McManus here. And you will see the video here. We've got a bit of a swingy arm coming into James McManus's head from Michael Ennis. And now, as we'd all remember, McManus had a string of issues with concussions. But Nagy, do you remember when that string of issues was? Was it in 13 or was it later?
Now, I believe, if I was remembering correctly, I believe he played his last Origin stint. He came in for Game 3 in 2013, I believe. And I believe he also got a concussion around that time as well, and that's the first time. So it could have been the start of his concussion issues, and but he was a stellar player. I think a lot of people forget when they think of great Knights wingers. He was absolutely up there with one of the best performers as far as a regular basis.
He was absolutely fantastic, and it brings me to another Celtic winger we had that I'd love to touch on more with you later. But Brian Carney, I think there's an idea for a show. Brian Carney,
just Brian Carney. I love how he came to the Knights for 1 year. Which
1
is odd.
year.
And then he was
signed for the Titans,
and
then went back
played.
to play rugby in Leinster. And I think he won a couple of trophies for Leinster.
I'm pretty sure
their very good years.
I'm pretty sure Andrew Johns just said to him, "Do you want to come back to the Knights and play?" Because he went over to England at the end of 2005, and played with the Warrington Wolves. And I'm pretty sure he's like, "You want to come back and play? We've got this team down there. It's a lot of fun. There's Fanny's nightclub, and it's all a bit of a laugh." And then he went, "Yeah, all right." Came back again, made the preliminary final. And then was never seen again. We got flogged by the Broncos though.
And he was the Knights' leading try scorer? Didn't he score 23 tries or something?
I don't think it was that many. I don't think we've ever had a player score 23 tries in a season. I'm going to say it was 19.
I'll go. Yep, that sounds reasonable. I'll go with that. But anyway, we digress, Nagy, as we tend to do. So
yeah,
obviously
back in 2013. Yep,
McManus being bullied. Headshot there, and this was kind of when the Bulldogs are right in their dogs of war. You know, big Des Hasler, second phase play. Sorry, from very big players, and the Bulldogs started getting ahead through their forward pack, but then.
To put it in perspective, these were last year's grand finalists as well in the Bulldogs in 2000, the previous years in 2012, losing to the Melbourne Storm, yeah, and the famous
Graham bit Billy Slater's ear.
Yeah. If only you bit it clean off and had a little bit more.
Just looking it up, guys. Just looking it up. Brian Carney scored 16 tries in 26 games.
16 tries.
How was I so far off? I was off by half.
Yeah. He had a pretty good year.
God.
He still would have been our leading try scorer.
Yeah, absolutely. But then we've got a great run here, which Josh has got the footage of Jeremy Smith. Now, he had an absolute blinder this game, but it wasn't a lot of stuff from him that you'd expect to see on the highlights reel. It was just real good Jeremy Smith stuff, you know, getting into the grub of things and getting down and dirty and playing that kind of real troublemaker through the middle.
We arguably had the best back row at the time in 2013. It might be getting a bit long, but ability-wise, both Scott, Jeremy Smith and Chris Houston were all very big physical guys. Like Chris Houston was a giant, really, for the back row and very mobile. And he played his best football.
Much like Steve Martin, grade very young.
He grade very young, that's true.
Yeah.
Much like Steve. Chris Houston played his best football with Jared Mullen. Like, they just had a nice connection, and Jared loved to do the long pass feint and then the short pass off the hip to Chris Houston. He was just such a big character. But Houston, Bo Scott, as we all knew, was such a he wasn't a big guy. My God, he must have been strong.
Bo Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was never like. You remember he was only in the centres for the Blues, and he didn't look out of place.
Yeah, he was only about like maybe 6 foot, so huge for a centre, but for a back rower, you know, in the era that he was playing, he must have just had technique. And Jeremy Smith, much the same, a guy that's not overly big, but I think technique and strength, they just put him out of the park, and they really wrestled these guys.
Yeah, and that's it. It was this run from Jeremy Smith that got him out of the wrestle, and it actually on the back of this run. The ball goes out to Jared Mullen, fires across a beautiful I think it was about 40 metres out, just jams it into the left corner. Barber picks it up in the in goal, held up. Line goal drop out from the Bulldogs. Knights get the ball back. But it was the plays like that Jeremy Smith would come up with when you need that, you know, that play, that big run or whatever. He'd be right there ready to make it for you.
He was a big game player, and that showed, you know, playing well into, you know, his mid-30s. But we didn't get the first points in this game, then, did we?
No, we didn't. Now, the first points actually came through the Bulldogs, which is quite obvious, actually, if we hadn't scored the first points. I don't really need to announce that. But it was a crossfield bomb from Josh Reynolds, who obviously won State of Origin next year in the most kind of unexpected series win of all time. Put a crossfield bomb to Sam Perrott on the right wing. Now, I always liked Sam Perrott. He was a very good, very underrated winger. I see him as like a slightly bigger Corey Thompson.
Okay. Yep.
Good, hard trier. He's technically very proficient.
I thought of him more as in if Matt Utai and Hazem Masri just sort of went to the same, and then just you got this weird sort of hybrid of Sam.
What
Sam
an interesting
Perrott.
Hybrid.
Well, two wingers, but two very differently shaped wingers.
Well, Matt Utai was very stout.
Yes.
Every single limb was built like a tree.
Yeah.
He had arms for trees.
Sam Perrott was an underrated player. You're right there, Liam. It's we had a little rant about underrated players, and people say that, you know, appropriately rated players were underrated. But Sam Perrott is probably one of those people who were underrated, a constant performer.
And then one thing I'd like to bring up was that during this early period of dominance from the Bulldogs. You had Greg Eastwood playing some pretty decent footy for him. Now, I always
Ugliest man alive. Can we not just? Can we not agree on that?
Absolutely. We can hopefully get a picture up to prove that he's the ugliest man alive.
Who's that? Sorry,
That's Greg
Eastwood.
Greg.
But he always struck me, if you were to look at Greg Eastwood, he's got his socks down, he's got his belly coming out a bit under, his footy shorts never seem to fit just right. He genuinely looks like he stumbled in from a work site into the sheds at the SFS and just kind of wandered out with the team straight from the construction site.
He's that player that's in under 16s that hit the growth spurt before all the other boys, so that so the kit doesn't fit properly. You know, he's big and he's fat, but he can run. And everyone, you know, it was.
And he was actually good.
He was very good. He was
played a lot for the Kiwis as well. So it was.
Just didn't look like an athlete.
This period was peak Greg Eastwood. Des Hasler was built to coach slightly overweight men like that. So, yeah, I always thought this era, kind of 12, 13, 14, was peak Greg Eastwood. And now we're going to look a bit further down the track for the next Knights-related piece of action, because Newcastle ended up defending for about 7 to 8 minutes, just repeat set after repeat set after repeat set. Defended very, very well, though. So the goal line defence and the scramble defence from the Knights from about minute 12 to 20 was fantastic. And then we finally see the Knights' first try going to Darius Boyd. Now, it was kind of a classic play that a lot of teams would start playing more recently, where you go the outside ball, then inside to the fullback. And I believe it was
Robbie Rochow.
Darius Boyd off Rochow. Robbie Rochow. Yeah.
We're saying Rochow or Rochow? Which one did we go
I thought we settled on Rochow.
I really felt for Robbie as well, because he came up with these sort of ball playing skills and seemed like a good solid back rower, probably a 13. He scored some tries. He was always and he was a consistent performer. Then he hurt his back, and then he was out for nearly a season, and then he broke his leg, or he broke his leg, then he hurt his back, one of the two. And we missed him for nearly 2 whole seasons. They didn't re-sign him, but they offered him a contract. But he, on his previous form, was probably up there with marquee forward money, and decided to go to the Rabbits. And
went to the Rabbitohs.
And I believe it was like he thought he could make rep football, and he had a better chance of doing it at the Rabbits. He only signed a 1-year contract because he believed that sign 1 year of the Rabbits, start playing good, get recognised, maybe make a rep side, and then you'll be in that upper echelon.
I think his manager may have really let him down there. Oh yeah, man, you can make rep sides. You'll kill it.
Well, he was a good player at the time.
I don't think he was rep quality though. He was a very good player, very consistent.
I think that was his goal. I think that was his.
But especially in the back row for the Blues, that's always been our strength. And
yes,
I think that's a bit.
I think he was probably maybe after I think he might have played country or something. So he'd entertained the idea of being in that realm. However, they played him at prop. They played him as just a run forward prop, and that was the worst thing they did to him because he took everything out. They tried to turn him into a prop, and he went to the Tigers and played a handful of games, and now he's retired.
So yeah, wasn't much chop at the Tigers either. It was much of the same.
Should have stayed with us.
So should everyone have though. But yeah, it was a beautiful try. I think it was Mullen who threw the original ball to Houston to put the pass back inside for Darius Boyd. But yeah, it's easy to forget the input that Darius had. I don't remember, was he even good for the Knights? I've forgotten entirely that whole period.
He had some good games, but there was games coming out of 2011, I think it was. Mm-hmm. 2010 he was the Clive Churchill. 2011. He was up. He was meant to be the best fullback in the game. The game of the Knights probably didn't do best fullback in the game things, but in big moments, and I believe in this and the final series, he played really well. But I don't feel like he played really well for all the time that he was with us. And towards the end, he really wanted out of his contract. And I think the Knights.
Well, to be fair, if you're not getting paid, I would also want out of that contract.
That's a fair call, but I think he rubbed people specifically the wrong way. Specifically the wrong way. In particular,
the wrong way.
Particularly the wrong way. When he left and then he said he needed some time for mental health issues, but then he was seen with his fiancée on a boat And I think everyone thought, have you?
Hey,
because
you can be mentally ill on a boat.
Games were still being played, and
I think that's the only way I would be caught on a boat.
if you're mentally ill.
That's right. Yes.
And so but look, he's not remembered fondly, but he did some good things in this game.
Yeah,
what was the Bulldogs didn't really get back on the over the try line again, did they?
They didn't. From that, the score sheet for the Bulldogs was held to 0, and we'll actually go straight to the Knights' next try because it wasn't too far after. It was only a couple of minutes after. Now we've got the footage here, which we'll bring up on the screen for you, and it was Mullen. And the boot of Mullen, we all remember the boot of Mullen was this highly regarded, almost mythical thing. And in this case, he puts up a crossfield bomb from second receiver, which Uarte runs an absolutely screaming inside line. He runs at this 45-degree angle. There's no Bulldogs player around. Plucks it out of the sky, and just scores a beauty. An absolute beauty.
We talked about the former Knight, Sean Kenny Dow, as being rocks and diamonds, but really he wasn't that rocks and diamonds when you compare him to Aquila Uarte, because you get more of a rocks and diamonds player. Because there was
you could
times,
not, and we loved him for it.
There was so many times where he was. They recently had a poll on Fox Sports, a channel who I'm not the biggest fan of, if I'm going to be frank. And one of the reasons is because they employ Paul Kent. So
Nagy's also upset that we turned them down. Oh no, sorry, they turned us down when we approached them. He hasn't let it go.
Bitter. I'm bitter. But they had a wing.
All right, Victoria.
They had the best wingers of the NRL era. And I'll tell you who wasn't on their top 10. They had 10 wingers. Wasn't on it? Aquila Uarte. Now, in the NRL
a travesty.
Era, 3 Dally M best winger of the year, 3 times in a row.
That's unparalleled. He should have been first picked.
Surely there's that counts for something. Now, for things that he did were marvellous. He did crazy things like run the length of the field and then put the ball down and knock it on. He did that more than once. But he did things like this just out of the blue. Really enthusiastically aggressive plays and just sprinting onto basically a cross-field bomb and putting it down. I guess he was a bit like an emotional sort of player. Like he got the best out of him. It was sad seeing him play against us when he was playing for Manly, but we didn't re-sign him. So
no, which is our own fault. And if we skip now to 35-18, I wanted to highlight this run from Joey Leilua. It's a very good run. Gains a lot of yards, but he's another one at the Knights who I forget his career with the Knights besides running into him at the Junction Tavern one night.
Well, the problem with Leilua was Leilua.
Well, Leilua.
Not Keith Leilua, that's the other one.
Not Keith Leilua, Joey Leilua.
Leilua.
He was BJ at the night.
At the time. The problem was after the 2015 season and the World Cup, the 2015 Rugby League World Cup, is that correct? That timeline was?
Yes, that sounds right. Yeah.
He was the best player for, I believe, Samoa. And he absolutely killed it. And then that finished, and all he must have done after that is eat food, because he came back so overweight, and he didn't like being told by Rick Stone that he was overweight because he played so well in the World Cup. And so he just, it was a bitter end to the Knights. We said.
It seems like every year though, Joey Leilua is a member of what they call the Fat Club. The players who come back from the off season with a few extra kilos. It seems like he's on the list every single year.
Yeah,
he's been doing this for like 10 years. Does he not understand?
Can you imagine him in isolation with the fact that all drive-thrus are still operating? Because I'm going to put it out there. And look, Joey, if you're listening, and I know you are, please correct me and say you're not a very good cook, and I think you're going out and
actually
you were buying a lot of takeaway.
I did do a bit of research. Now, we've brought up before, and other podcasts have brought up the fact that Ronald McDonald family restaurants have a $20 gift card that Brisbane players get that they can use every day. And I was kind of thinking to myself, how do you spend $20 in a day in McDonald's? And I can tell you, it's a double quarter pounder meal, large with bacon, Sprite, and 6 nuggets, 2 extra sweet and sour sauce. That sent me back $20, 25 cents. And so now, like, you can see it's actually quite a bit easier to spend $20 at McDonald's than you think. So,
Yes.
you know, it's not like they're going
What was the
3
order
times a
again?
day.
Sorry,
They're
Liam.
going
So, what was the order?
double quarter pounder meal large with bacon, Sprite for the drink, 6 McNuggets, and 2 sweet and sour sauce, please, and thank you.
No worries, cheers.
There's,
I'm going to hand that out the window to me in the back there.
you would have had to swipe your player's card and give them 25 cents. Can I?
Yeah, I would have. But fortunately, no one's monitoring my weight for my professional career.
Yeah. Do you have time
now-
for a quick story regarding McDonald's? I might have told this before on the podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Always.
My most embarrassing moment is when I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I was working in hospital. I was with a friend and we went through Macca's drive-through and we got the order. I believe he wasn't eating, so it was just my order like that. And I counted out the change I had in the middle console. And then I've given to the lady, the lovely lady who may have been no more than 15 years old. And I thought I gave her a mere 5 cents too much, Liam. And I was willing to let this go. So when she said to me, when she counted through,
you are a generous God.
When she said, "Oh, 5 cents," I just said, "Don't worry about it." But this was not her informing me I'd given her 5 cents too much, but too little, Liam. Too little. I'd miscounted. Now I went to drive away, and she said, "No, 5 cents," and I said, "Just don't worry about it." Once again. This point, she was sort of like, stopping, like, "Don't drive any further. You haven't given me enough money." And I was sort of like, what? Now, the embarrassment there is enough. It's more of an inconveniently, like, mistimed thing. But the embarrassment really, and out of sheer panic, I said, "Really? Can I count it again?" And maybe
so you just doubled down on it. You doubled down on it.
And I was like, "You're right. I haven't given enough money." And I didn't have any more money, so I had to borrow it from my friend.
I want to try that. I want to go somewhere and underpay, and when they tell me that I don't have enough, just go, "No, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. It's all good. We're good.
I've had 2 very funny shrapnel coin stories. Was the first one time I went into Mayfield BWS and I was buying myself a bottle of $4.90 Gossips Cab Merlot, I think.
Yes.
And I paid the whole $4.90 in 10-cent coins. And I said, "I'm really sorry about the change now. It's in like 50s, 20s, and 10s." And just, rolled her eyes at me. And But then a couple of weeks later, I went to buy the very same bottle of wine from a different BWS. And I was in a very same situation. I had nothing but shrapnel and coins. I said, "Oh, mate, sorry about all the silvers here, brother. I know it's a pain in the ass." He goes, "Don't worry about it, mate. That's how I pay my child support." And then just kind of gave me a big, beautiful wave, and I left. It was beautiful.
You found a kinship there
It was
with
really
that
sweet
man
transaction.
that's probably not paying his children enough money.
I don't know if his child support's $4.90 or whatever that was.
Now let's get back to the game that we've so quickly divested ourselves
half
from.
time, Liam. What happened at half time?
I want to highlight something that what's that?
Sorry, we made it to half time.
Not yet. We've only got one more moment before halftime. Now, this moment, I'm going to ask our producers and co-hosts for a bit of silence so we can overlay a bit of commentary here.
It's almost an old-fashioned stiffy.
Now, what you're going to notice from that bit of commentary there is that Ray Hadley. Now, Ray Hadley has been
awful
calling rugby league for so many times. He's an awful man, and he says awful things, but this being one of the funnier things I've ever heard in rugby league commentary, he referred to a forearm straight on the chin as a good old-fashioned stiffy. Isn't that great? Ray Hadley, a good old
Nothing like a stiffy to the chin.
He said, "Oh, it was a good old-fashioned stiffy." And then about 2 minutes later, you can tell someone got in his ear. He says, "Oh, of course, I meant stiffy to mean the stiff forearm to the chin."
Stiff forearm rather than the stiff penis.
No, it's, you don't want that on your chin. My God. No.
It's like your favorite other bit of commentary, which is when
right on the peck.
Right on the pecker.
He's hit John's right on the pecker.
Is that from the 95 Origin? Is that what that's from?
Yeah,
okay.
the fight with.
I'll get
Cattle
that.
from Cattle.
We heard about aggression coming into this game, and there's Andrew Johns trying to get around the touchdown.
He's landed a right on the pecker.
Yeah, and he's really excited. Oh, right on the pecker, and it's like,
He's hitting it
someone's-
right on the pecker.
did someone tell him that pecker does not mean nose?
No, it doesn't. That's it. I think some of these commentators, they need to be really briefed on what the new slang is. A lot of them starting to show their age. But look, let's take a wee moment here to highlight the halftime statistics throughout the game. Now, the Knights actually, the stats looking fantastic. 15 out of 16 completions, 1 error, only 2 penalties, 4 offloads, 52% time in possession. So despite the fact that the Bulldogs looked to be really taking the lead early on, the Knights they'd wrestled that back by about the 25th, 30th minute and really went on with it through the first half.
Yeah, so we came out the second half. This is 12-6, I believe. Is this correct?
It was 12-6 to the Knights. That is correct.
I remember being pretty confident going in at being down the pub, and I think as Newcastle, we've been burned a lot of times as Newcastle supporters, and I think everyone knew this, and when we were sort of at 12-6, everyone sort of like got a little bit of hope. You started seeing a little bit more red and blue getting around. You started seeing a few more strangers sort of approaching, and you have that, I call it, the urinal chat, where you just start mentioning something about the game, and it's usually something like, you're at the urinal, as gentlemen are.
How's
and
this game?
Eyes to the thought, but you recognise the jersey out of the peripheral, and then you simply say something like, we might be in with a shot here, and then as someone's walking out, they say, if we're going to just fucking hold the ball, and then you go, oh, and then you're now friends, basically. It's the same as, tuck shop line chat, where you meet other students, but instead you're both adults, and you both are winging against the wall.
Bonded by the power of the urinal.
Yes.
The ceramic god. Well, not ceramic.
You get two kinds of people in the pub. The guys that don't wash their hands at all and thinks that's fine, hands on the penis, and then I'm going to walk out. Or the guys that wash their hands but don't hang around for any wrong, saturated hands completely on the shirt, completely on the pants, and then we're away. So that's the two kinds of people.
Guy.
The saturated.
I always walk out of the toilet just with wet patches everywhere.
I'm a bit the same. Try to spread it out.
So many places don't use paper towel. I mean, I get it's bad for the environment.
Huge mountains of paper towel there'll be on your way out. It's like you walk through the valley of these 2 mountains of paper towel.
Yeah, it's quite something. But anyway, let's get to the second half, Nagy. Now, the second half, we start in some fairly spectacular form from the Bulldogs with Josh Reynolds quite early in the half, taking an intercept. Now, Reynolds runs, I think about 60 metres we'll be looking at. He goes along, he gives it a good hoof down the field. But
good chase, though.
It's a great chase. It's a very, very good chase. You've got 4 Knights players chasing him back. And I can't remember who it is that makes the tackle. But in the very play after this one...
Boyd looks like he's going to get him. And as he runs away from Boyd, another player gets him up. It might be Gagai.
I think it was Chris Houston because in the very next play, Chris Houston was sent from the field.
No. Chris Houston was coming back on side. Michael Ennis knew that there was players coming back on side and went into the channel to bump with Chris Houston.
Yes.
So it wasn't Chris Houston that made the initial tackle.
I'm seeing the footage here. It was I think it was Jesus, I can't remember.
The people at home would have already seen the footage, so it's so they know.
It's well past. We're well past it.
They know. So it was, but it was a good chase nonetheless. But yes, they did leave with us with a man down.
We did. Now 12 on 13. We always know that defending your goal line with 12 men against 13 is a real doozy. It's a real toughie. But I've outlined
a real stiffy
here in this a real stiffy, if you will, and I'm sure you intend.
I won't.
Is the Knights down to 12 men. You're going to witness right here at this particular bit of vision some great goal line defence from the Knights. There was 3 plays where these Bulldogs gave it everything they could to put it over the Knights, but it really was a perfect kind of microcosm of the Knights' goal line defence all game, which had been very good.
They seemed to have built on each other's confidence. I remember watching this game.
Oh,
The Knights
absolutely.
would make a great tackle. I remember Alex McKinnon was in there doing some wonderful work. He had an excellent end of the season. This is when we saw the best from Alex McKinnon. And he went from that, just from probably a bench back row is what he was. And then the back end of 2013, he really started to find form as more of almost like a ball playing back row, and his defense was absolutely, remarkable. It was probably the peak of his career. It was so the Knights did such a great job, but we managed to get the next one was a penalty goal. Was that correct?
And next one is the penalty goal from Tyrone Roberts. Yes, which is such a Bennett play. Get down there and get to those kicks. Get as many PGs as you can.
He loves the 2 points, and so this took us to an 8-point lead after repelling them back, basically as good as, and with Chris Howson returning. So basically, it was as good as another try. With all the defence that we did, and then we just started pulling it out of their reach with that 8 points.
That's it. Well, it started with some good sets going down the field, but the thing that really iced it for the Knights was the end of sets. So you've got our next piece of vision is Dane Gagai kicking on the last to force a repeat set, but now Dane Gagai is not really particularly well known for his kicking, but he took this one down the blind side, nice little kind of grubber that, going off the boot looked like it was going to go anywhere. He didn't know where it was going to go, and it just so happened that it ended up in the in goal, I believe taken by Barber. And then
Barber was injured by this point.
Had he not come back? I thought he came back on for some reason.
No, I believe he rolled. There's a classic Jared Mullen tackle on Ben Barber, which is it's not classic Jared Mullen, it's a classic tackle to how to break someone's ankle. And then if you get someone that's quite lively and they run past you and you slide down the hips and you collapse down the back of their legs as they're running.
I'm seeing the slow-mo of it right now, actually. And it's
very painful. Yeah, very painful. And he did not come back from that.
No, and so we got our repeat set from Gagai, which was a beauty. And then mere minutes later, we get a beautiful little kick from Tyrone Roberts. Now, I love Tyrone Roberts. I really wish he'd stay for the
He's a competitor.
career. Instead of going to the Titans, instead of going to England, I would have been so happy to have him play out his career at the Knights.
Ironically, do you remember what happened? Like why he went to the Titans? I know Josh.
He wanted to play with his cousin James.
No.
That's what he told me at the Crown and Anchor Hotel.
Well, he said he was willing to fight out the halfback position because we signed Trent Hodgson. And he's like, I'm willing to fight it. And then they basically said, don't bother, mate. Go. We want to see you play first grade. Go up to the Gold Coast. You're good enough for the Gold Coast, which is basically saying you're good enough for Burleigh Bears.
That's essentially what Phil Gould has been doing for the last 3 years. Oh, look, we've got you at the Panthers, but you're too good for us. Just, go up to the Goldie for a bit.
And it was like that. And then, meanwhile, Trent Hodgson came back. Love the guy. I have a lot of respect for the man, but he just didn't perform as a halfback. Human being. He was coming off an injury, and we didn't do the duty of care, the due diligence with the knee injury recovering. He couldn't change direction very quickly.
I don't think he's got knees anymore.
No,
God, no.
I think they're both gone.
They both just operate.
I don't know what he's got in place of knees, but he doesn't have knees anymore.
You know those rubber band balls you make, where you start with a couple of rubber bands and slowly get bigger and bigger. You end up that big. I think he's got them instead of knees.
Yes, he's got none knees. Sorry, my camera went off for a moment there. He's got absolutely none knees, and it was unfortunate because Tyrone Roberts, went away also to England for a year, but he's maintained to play like a first grade standard.
He's been the Titans' best the last few years with Duncan because there's no one else good at the Titans.
Yeah, and he's just got a natural awareness of the game, a good rugby league mind, and lively. Lively, but we were coming off of some bad times in 2014, 15, whenever we let him go.
And further to that story of him telling me he was going to play with his cousin Jimmy at the Crown and Anchor, just a story about how good of a bloke he is. Me and my boss went into the pokies. We were skin deep, and we sat down to have a slap. And who was on the one next to us? But Tyrone Roberts doing $4.50 spins and. We kind of looked over and like, oh, shit, it's Tyrone. We better, we'll leave him alone. He just kind of looks up. Hey, boys, how are you? You having a good night? Yep. We had a lovely chat with Tyrone. So, lot of
Yeah.
credit, a lot of time
No.
for Tyrone in my life.
No, it's good. He was always friendly at the times that I came across him as well. And yeah, he could have made a big difference in those sort of the doldrums that we were stuck in.
Yeah.
A player of his talents. Now, Len, but we got back on the scoreboard again for another try to really stretch the lead out.
There was a couple of key moments I wanted to indicate before in the lead up to the try, because it was still very. The Knights had got ahead, but the Bulldogs weren't far away from the Knights. There was a couple of big plays led up to the Smith try. You've got a really good kick return from Uwate, which we got a bit of footage coming out right here. Again, like one of the diamonds you get in amongst the rocks from Akila Uwate. And then we follow that on with a good run from Willie Mason. Now, he actually played some very good footy in that 2013 season. I think the Knights often seem like a humorous footnote to his career. Like he went there for just a couple of years to piss around and have fun. And I know he actually did play some genuinely good footy while he was here.
Yeah, not a nice person. On the opposite end of Tyrone Roberts being quite a nice person, Willie Mason, not a nice person, and his brother is possibly the worst person in the entire world.
I wonder if they can get podcasts in jail. Do you think so?
Yeah, probably, most likely. Well, he didn't like me before. He didn't like me before.
Sorry, Nate. It seems like there's something that happened here. What have I missed something? Have you had an actual encounter with Mr. Mason?
Now, Les Mason, right? I saw him getting around Cooks Hill most recently, before he was in jail, and there was a firefighter getting around asking, "Sorry, does anyone who parked their car over there in front of the fire station blocking the driveway?" And sure enough, who was it but Les Mason said, "Oh, that's me. I'll move it. Sorry," but then came back and said, "What's old mate's problem over there?" He knew I wasn't going to be there very long. I wasn't hanging over the driveway very much. He could have gone around me. It was a fire station, Les. Move your ute. Also, he knocked me clean down at the Cambridge one night when he was tough, sort of looking at a guy out the window, and literally I was just walking and he just absolutely knocked me down, and I was like that, and then just the way he responded to he knocked someone down. I said, "I'm very sorry, I've just knocked you down."
Yeah,
the person I'm showing aggression at. And I think I said, "What the hell?" And he told me to fuck off. But then again, I have all my civil liberties and freedoms, and he's in jail. So, what can I say? I digress. I'm sorry, Liam. I'm running also very short on battery and time, and we should probably skip through towards.
Well, we're getting towards the end of the game, so
yes.
After our W Mason play, we've got another beautiful kick from Mullen. The following play to force a repeat set. I didn't find the statistic, but I'd love to know how many repeat sets the Knights got, because I counted at the very least 3, but there could well have been 4 or 5. And then Jeremy Smith, well-deserved solo try to steal the game. I think he carried over about 4 players or so. We've got some beautiful slow motion of the try as well. But
Jeremy Smith did this time and time again by running the sort of overs line, the line that almost like you're going to get smashed or you're going to break through, and he could just find the try line. He nearly got signed for a 1-year contract, I believe, in 2015 to go to the Roosters, and he said, "No, I'm going to finish my contract with the Knights," and stayed there for 2016. Captained the side because it was going to be him, Hodkinson, and Tarek Sims. Tarek Sim left. Hodkinson didn't play much first grade that year, so he ended up capping. But he was also had pretty buggered knees by that point.
Yes,
he probably,
as we mentioned, the rubber band ball knees.
Yeah. But good on him for staying into his 36th year, I believe. Yeah.
Very sweet story.
But he did that a lot. He did that the back. I don't know how the overs line back in and under the posts. He was just.
That's an unders line. You go out and then in. Yeah.
Yes, and he was just in his day a very good player
and a competitor. What a competitor!
A competitor. That's probably a good way to say it.
And tough.
That's probably
Very
also
tough.
In that same realm of competitiveness and
any number of those adjectives
under the umbrella of what a player,
yeah.
But so we see the final try of the game, Liam.
We did. We've seen the final try, so that's our Jeremy Smith run, and We got
That
some
took us-
beautiful. That took us out to 22-6, which was the final score, and there was about 10 minutes to go after that. So I just said bugger it and went off and started celebrating.
There was that was I think where a lot of people knew it, and then the Bulldogs started throwing the ball around a lot, and then in the last 5 minutes, they ball went to ground, and we picked it up from halfway and nearly scored again.
It was a great.
left-hand
That's
corner.
it. It was that run from Jeremy Smith that almost led to Chris Houston scoring. I think.
There was, I think, another one down the back line. I think
right.
BJ and nearly got over and got tackled over the sideline with the ball. The ball went forward, but it was one of those very close. Could have really capped it off. And of course, the story didn't end there with the Knights. The next week we went to play the red hot Melbourne Storm, the reigning premiers, the informed side, and it was a knockout final. And we managed to down in Melbourne,
Knock them out.
knock them clean out. And then we played the filthy Roosters, and then they took out Danny Medeiros. But good on.
It was
Danny.
Waria Hargraves took out Danny Medeiros, wasn't it?
Yeah, because he just elbowed him. He gave him a good stiffy to the face.
Good stiffy to the face.
He raised his knee and put his stiffy down, and Danny Medeiros has played an outstanding game against the Storm and a great one against the Bulldogs in this one. He
was superb.
He was too good of a player to be carried off in his last game.
Absolutely.
That might be a fun list for us to do next week. Is
Players who have been carried off in their last game.
well, players that may have ended their career not to storybook
Ended their
finish.
career poorly.
Yeah, and there's already a couple.
I like that idea.
There's already a couple of things. We'll talk about this off air. So thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, I think that's a
It's
grand
been a
idea.
pleasure. So we'll join you next week for maybe players that finish their career not to the storybook finish. Also, by the time we see this, restrictions of COVID might be starting to be relaxed slightly. If we can get just a little bit more relaxed, we can get back in that studio and start recording all the wonderful things that we can do again. And also counting down less than a month to go until May 28th, the do or die date, to see if football will actually be played again. 20-round season announced. It's going to be very exciting.
Actually, Nagy, 1 month from today, from this very day itself,
Yes.
1 calendar month until the rugby league returns.
Yes. So it's going to be very exciting to see hopefully some football back in the park. And then we can start looking at games rather than 7 years ago, but more
From 7 minutes ago.
7 minutes ago. And then we can go from there. And we were all really looking forward to all being in the same room together. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me, Liam. Thank you for joining us all at home. And also keep your eyes out. We might be finding a different way to get onto your larger screens into your living room. So keep your eyes peeled. I've never understood that expression. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Pom, our men in the dark. And we'll be joining you next week.
Don't forget about the pipes.
Pipes, search for Instagram. We don't do anything on Twitter much anymore.
I post once a week.
Yeah.
Generally the sack.
We might do some more things on Twitter. But Liam, can you tell me your old Twitter handle just before we sign off?
No, I don't want to be arrested.
It was funny. It was funny, your old Twitter handle. Wolfman97.
My Twitter, Wolf's England, but it's protected, so
I don't know. It's
What
just
was that?
like
don't try and tell the cops about me.
It sounds like it's
I was-
being
I
scrambled
was
to
trying to
stop
get
us
a
from
real
hearing it.
gruff, mysterious voice.
Liam. It's
Yeah, like kind of got caught in my beard, and then I lowered my voice. So that's exactly what I was going for, boys. I've achieved my goal. Essentially, is what you're saying.
We'll never find out his real name. Thank you for joining us, Liam. We'll see you all next week, Justice. Bye-bye.
Bye.